Glancing over my morning paper today, I noticed that an enterprising gentleman in the catering business had invented a musical hot dog called, would you believe, a humburger. Isn't it amazing the things some people will eat? Food, by the way, is something of a hobby of mine, and I never cease to be amazed at what a good chef can do with a few basic ingredients. There are few more exciting experiences than being allowed into the kitchen of a really first-class restaurant to watch a master chef at work. And of course, this privilege is rarely extended to anyone. Which reminds me of an experience I had a few years back. And to give it the right flavour, let's call it Speciality of the house. I was staying in London at the time, and a friend of mine, Harry Laffler, knowing that I was interested in good food, invited me to dine with him one evening at his favourite restaurant. Harry was an international advertising man, and knowing the size of his expense account, I had imagined that I was in for an evening at one of London's plushier night spots. Imagine my surprise, therefore, when I found myself being ushered towards a shabby brownstone building in an almost deserted downtown back street.
Well, here we are. This is Spiro's. What do you think?
Well, Harry, it's not quite what I expected. It is rather dismal, isn't it?
I'll have you know that Spiro's is the restaurant without pretensions. It is the one place in these ghastly neurotic times that has refused to compromise. When you enter Spiro's, you leave the insanity of this hour, of this day, of this year, and you find yourself for a brief span restored in spirit.
You make it sound more like a cathedral than a restaurant.
I wonder if I did the right thing bringing you here.
Now, come on, Harry. I was only joking.
You see, you are the one person I know with the knowledge of good food. Knowing about Spiro's and not having an appreciative friend to share it with is like having a unique work of art locked up in a room where no one else can see it. Anyway, let's not stand round here talking. Let's go in.
Good evening, sir.
Mr. Laffler and a guest.
Yes, sir. Please come this way, gentlemen.
The waiter led us through a mirrored foyer into a small dining room. It was no size at all. The half a dozen or so guttering gas jets that provided the only illumination through such a deceptive light that the walls flickered and faded into uncertain distance. There were no more than 8 or 10 tables in the room, and all but one were occupied. The few waiters serving moved amongst them with quiet efficiency. It really was very pleasant, and as soon as we got seated at a vacant table, I said as much to Harry.
There, I knew you'd like it. Wait and taste the food. By the way, did you notice there are no women present?
Yes, I did. Isn't that rather odd?
Spiro doesn't encourage them, and I can tell you his method of getting rid of them is very effective.
Excuse me, would you like to be served now?
Tell me, is the special being served tonight?
Oh, I am so sorry. There is no special this evening.
But it's been a month already, and I had hoped that my friend here...
I'm sorry, sir, but you do understand the difficulties.
Ah, well, what the hell. But I was hoping, Simon, to introduce you to the greatest treat Spiro offers.
Oh, never mind. I'm sure that whatever we decide upon will be delicious.
Shall I serve at once, sir?
Yes, please.
Harry, have you ordered in advance?
No. I should have explained. Spiro offers no choice whatsoever.
But suppose we don't like what we're given?
Oh, don't worry. You will relish every mouthful. Just think for a moment of the advantages of such a system. For instance, instead of the hurly-burly of sweating cooks trying to prepare hundreds of different dishes, Here we have a chef who stands serenely alone, bringing all his culinary arts to bear on one task.
So you've seen Spiro's kitchen? Tell me what it's like.
Unfortunately, I can't. I've never seen it. Believe me, I've tried. In fact, I admit that my desire to see the inside of this particular kitchen has become almost an obsession with me.
Have you ever mentioned this to Spiro?
At least a dozen times, but he just shrugs his massive shoulders and smiles. Still, I've never given up hope.
At this point, the waiter reappeared, bearing the soup bowls and a small tureen, which he slowly ladled a measure of clear, thin soup. I must confess that I tasted this soup with some curiosity. It was delicately flavoured, bland to the verge of tastelessness. Automatically, I reached for the salt.
Well, what do you think of the soup?
Excellent.
If you'll pardon me for saying so, you don't.
What?
You do not find it excellent. You find it flat and badly in need of salt. How do I know? Because that was my reaction when I first dined here. But I'm confident that you'll make the same discovery that I did. By the time you've finished your soup, your desire for salt will be non-existent. Well, do you agree with me now?
Well, Harry proved to be quite right, and before I finished the soup, I was ravishing every mouthful of it. It was really wonderful. Harry smiled at me across the table.
Wasn't I right?
Yes, you certainly were.
You will find that the absence of condiments is only one of several noteworthy characteristics which mark Spiro's. I may as well prepare you for the rest. For example, no alcoholic beverages of any sort are served.
Oh, really, Harry?
Also, there is a ban on the use of tobacco of any kind.
Good Lord, is this a restaurant or a temperance hotel?
You don't understand. By altering stimulant and narcotic, you seesaw the delicate balance of your tastes so violently that it loses its most precious quality, the appreciation of fine food.
Not another word was spoken until we had both finished our main course, nor was there any need for words in the presence of such food. It was delicious, and it was only with great effort that I prevented myself from wolfing the whole lot down in one go and establishing myself as a grade A glutton on my very first visit to this amazing restaurant. When we had both finished eating, Harry and I smiled at each other contentedly. We were both aware that we had enjoyed an exceptional culinary experience. Harry, if I had any doubts about Spiro's, I apologise unreservedly. In all your praise of the place, there's not a single word of exaggeration.
Ah, that is only part of the story. You heard me mention the special. That was unfortunately not on tonight's menu. Well, what we've just eaten is as nothing when compared to the absolute delights of that special.
Good Lord. What is it? Nightingale's tongue? Fillet of unicorn?
Neither. It's lamb.
Lamb? Oh, come on. You've got to be joking.
If I were to give you, in my own unstinted words, my opinion of this dish, you would think me insane. That is how deeply the mere thought of it affects me. It is a select portion of the rarest sheep in existence. Lamb Armistan.
Armistan?
A remote and almost unknown place on the border which separates Russia and Afghanistan. From chance remarks dropped by Spiro, I gather that it's hardly more than a plateau which grazes the pitiful remnants of a flock of superb sheep. Spiro, by some means or other, has obtained exclusive rights to this flock, and is therefore the only restaurateur in the world ever to have lamb Armistan on his menu. I can tell you, the appearance of this dish is a very rare occurrence indeed, and nobody ever knows the exact date on which it will be served.
But surely Spiro could provide some advance knowledge of the event?
The only objection to that is simply stated. Should advance information slip out, then the professional gluttons in which this town abounds would get the opportunity to taste the dish and sooner or later drive out the regular patrons.
You don't mean to say that these few people present are the only ones in the entire city who know of the experience of Spiro's?
In the entire world.
That's incredible.
It's kept a secret by every single patron, a solemn obligation. By accepting my invitation this evening, you automatically assume this obligation. I hope that you can be trusted with this.
Well, if that's the way you want it, Harry, of course I can.
It may sound strange to you indeed. It may border on eccentricity. But I'm a solitary man, and I feel to my depths that this restaurant is both family and friend.
I must confess that until that moment, I'd never really thought much about Harry's private life. To me, he was a pleasant friend and a dining companion, and his private affairs never really concerned me. Now, hearing him refer to Spiro's in this manner, I almost came to feel sorry for him. By the end of the 2 weeks, Harry's invitations for me to join him at Spiro's had become something of a ritual. Now, I'm by nature one of those people with a lean and hungry look, but I began to notice that I was rapidly putting on weight. I was, to tell the truth, becoming plump. I began to wonder whether Harry, no means a lightweight, had also been lean before he'd started to dine at Spiro's. Thinking the whole thing over, I decided that I would not refuse to eat at the restaurant until I had both tasted the lamb armistan and also been introduced to the amazing Mr. Spiro. And then, one night, a few weeks later, I achieved both ambitions. And both, must I say, exceeded my expectations.
Good evening, gentlemen. Tonight is the special, sir.
What?
Well, this is it. The cumulative triumph of all times. And faced by it, you are embarrassed by the very emotion it distills.
I must confess that my heart is certainly beating faster than usual. Tell me, the other diners, do they feel the same way?
Well, of course they do. Look around and see for yourself.
Yes, you're right. Anyway, there's comfort in numbers, and it's nice to know that we all have the same animal dealings and can anticipate, or shall I say, drool over our meat.
Look, one of our member appears to be in for a disappointment. Over there, at the table, the empty seat.
Oh yes, the stout bald man. He's not here tonight. I do believe it's the first dinner he's missed here in weeks.
Rain or shine, crisis or calamity, I don't think he's missed a meal in Spiro's for 10 years. Imagine his disappointment when he realises he's missed the speciality of the house.
I'm so very, very pleased.
Ah, Mr. Spiro.
Gentlemen, now lamb armistan will be an unqualified success. I myself have been stewing in the kitchen all day, prodding the foolish chef to do just so. The just so is the important part. But I see that your friend does not know me. An introduction, perhaps?
The words ran in a smooth fluidity. They rippled, they purred, and I found myself hypnotised. And I could do no more than stare as Harry performed the introductions. Spiro's mouth, the mouth that uncoiled this sinuous monologue, was alarmingly wide, with these mobile lips that curled and twisted with every syllable. He had a wide nose and wide-set eyes. It was an amazing face. Somehow I had the feeling that I had seen it before. It was somehow familiar.
I'm so very pleased to meet you, Mr. Flynn. I'm so very pleased.
Thank you.
I am Spiro, the owner of this restaurant. You like this establishment?
Yes, I do, very much.
You have a great treat in store for you today.
True.
My friend is way of being a great admirer of yours.
A great compliment. You compliment me with your presence, and I return the compliment with my food. But I assure you that lamb armistan is far superior to anything in your experience. All the trouble of obtaining it, all the preparation, it's truly worth the end result.
You know, I've wondered why, with all these difficulties you mentioned, why you even bother to present lamb armistan. Surely your other dishes are excellent enough to uphold your reputation.
Ah, perhaps it's a matter of psychology. Someone discovers a wonder and must share it with the world. Or perhaps it's just a matter of good business.
Well then, in the light of all this, and considering all the conventions you impose on your customers, why don't you turn it into a private club?
I will tell you, because there's more privacy in a public eating place than the most exclusive club in existence. Here no one inquires into your affairs, no one desires to know the intimacies of your life. We are not curious about our guests. You're welcome when you're here, and we have no regrets when you go. And that's the answer, eh?
Yes, I'm sorry. I had no intention of prying.
No, you're not prying into someone's affairs. On the contrary, I invite questions.
Don't let Spiro intimidate you. I've known him for years, and I can assure you his bark is far worse than his bite. Before you know it, he'll be showing you all the privileges of the house, except inviting you into his precious kitchen.
Ah, for that you might have to wait a little while, I'm afraid.
What did I tell you? Come on now, Spiro. The truth. Has anyone except staff ever stepped into that kitchen of yours?
You see on the wall the portrait of the only man I gave that honour to. A true friend and a patron of long standing.
Oh, it's Andrew Herring, the writer. You know the one, Harry. He used to write those marvellously cynical articles for the New American. And then he took himself off to somewhere, to Mexico, I think, and then he disappeared.
Of course. And here I've been, sitting staring at that picture for years without recognising it. It must have been a blow to you when your old friend disappeared, Spiro.
It was, I assure you, gentlemen. But I like to think that he is probably greater in his death than in his life. He often told me that he spent many happy hours here at this table. And to think that the only favour I could show him was to let him see the mysteries of my humble kitchen.
You seem very certain of his death. After all, as I remember, no evidence has ever turned up to support it.
Not at all. Remarkable, eh? We'll have no more talk, gentlemen. Here comes the speciality of the house. Lamb armistan. Bon appétit.
Bon appetit.
Bon appetit!
Spiro served the meal himself, taking great care not to lose a single drop of gravy as he sliced the joint, underdone to perfection. He filled the 2 plates with the chunks of dripping meat.
Good, eh? Better than you imagined?
It is impossible for the uninitiated to imagine the delights of lamb armistan as
for a mortal man to look into his own soul?
Perhaps you have taken a glimpse into your own soul.
Yes, perhaps, and a gratifying picture it made, all fang and claw.
I must be going. But sometime, my friend, when you've nothing better to do, sit for a little while in a dark room and think of this world as what it's going to be. And then you must turn your thoughts to the significance of the lamb. It will be so interesting. Now, gentlemen, I've interrupted you for far too long. Au revoir.
Au revoir. He's an interesting man, Spiro. Very interesting. You know, Harry, he reminds me of someone. Did you ever remember that series, Catweasel? Oh, I just can't think who. You don't think I offended him in any way, do you?
Offended him? Goodness no, he loves that sort of talk. Lamb Armistan is a ritual with him. Get him started and he'll just go on forever.
It was a month later it finally came to me exactly who it was that Spiro reminded me of. It wasn't Catweasel. When I finally knew who it was, I laughed out loud. Of course, he reminded me of the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland. It had very long claws and a great many teeth, so she felt that it ought to be treated with great respect. I mentioned this to Harry as we walked home that night, and he replied,
"It's a long time since I've read Alice in Wonderland. A very long time."
That following evening, Harry had a business meeting and would be running late. So to save time, I agreed to meet him at Spiro's. I had only just seated myself at our usual spot when in came my friend looking rather like a cat that had been dragged through a bush backwards. In fact, through several bushes. "What on earth has happened to you? You look ghastly."
"Oh, I'm fine. There was a bit of a scuffle outside, but I managed to resolve it."
"Tell me more."
One of the waiters was fighting with some burly drunken fella who had pulled a knife on him and had demanded his wallet when he had gone out back to the dustbins to dump some rubbish. I wrestled the yob to the ground and managed to get the implement off him and asked the waiter to call the police, but he refused, saying Spiro doesn't like them.
"Well, who does? Oh, Harry, you could have been killed. What happened next?"
"There's nothing much more to it, really. The yobbo skulked off with his tail between his legs, and the waiter chap kept on repeating how grateful he was to me for saving his life. He sounded like a broken record. Eventually, the waiter disappeared into the restaurant."
What a harrowing experience. Sit down and take the weight off your feet. Well, after all the excitement and kerfuffle of hearing about the incident, I must confess that I had quite an appetite, and as soon as Harry was comfortably seated, we debated with some trepidation whether or not we could expect to see the special Lamb Armistan that evening.
"Good evening, Mr. Spiro."
Mr. Flynn. Mr. Luffler?
"You seem to be in a hurry. I won't detain you. Any special tonight?"
No special tonight.
"Just my luck."
Ah, no special. What a shame.
"No special. To see me on my way."
Are you going away, Harry?
"Yes, damn it. I'm off to South America for a month or two in order to mount a new campaign for some very rich clients."
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. When are you going?
"Tonight. I've managed to wangle some reservations. Just my luck."
Well, I'm going to miss you, Harry. I've enjoyed our evenings together, and these little dinners of ours, they've come to mean a great deal to me. Shortly afterwards, the waiter served us, and we turned our attention to our dinner. Harry finished his quickly and continued to bemoan his fate and to regret loudly the thought of missing the Lamb Armistan during his trip. Then, just as I finished the meal, a waiter, who was not our usual, leaned over to take Harry's plate.
"I owe my life to you. I can repay you."
"Well, you have repaid me with your thanks. Let's not hear any more of it."
"I can help you, sir. My life for yours, sir. I will help even if you don't want to do. Do not go into the kitchen tonight. Not tonight or any night."
"Why shouldn't I go into the kitchen? Don't be absurd."
What's going on here?
"This man is a little unnerved, I think."
Oh yes, an unfortunate experience.
He's saying something about me not visiting your kitchen. What's that all about? Do you know what he means?
But of course he was just giving you good advice. It so happens that my too emotional chef had heard some rumour that I might have a guest in the kitchen tonight. He flew into a fearful rage, threatening to give his notice in on the spot. However, have no fear. I have succeeded in showing him. What a true honour to have a true connoisseur. Observe him at his work. You are at the wrong table. Make sure it does not happen again.
The waiter slunk away without daring to raise his eyes, and Spiro drew up a chair to the table. He seated himself and ran his hands through his hair.
My humble invitation for you to visit my kitchen, Mr. Luffler. I had hoped for it to be a surprise. The surprise is ruined. All that's left is the invitation.
Are you serious? Do you mean that at last we are really to witness the preparation of food in your kitchen tonight?
Oh no, Mr. Luffler, not both. I'm afraid I'm faced with a dilemma of great proportions, gentlemen. You, Mr. Luffler, have been my guest for 10 years. But our friend here? No, I'm very sorry.
Absolutely not. That wouldn't be fair at all. Surely, Spiro, you can make an exception on this one occasion.
Oh no, Mr. Spiro, I really understand perfectly. This invitation is solely to Harry, and naturally my presence here is embarrassing you. No, as it happens, I do have another engagement for later. I must be on my way anyhow, so you see, there's really no dilemma at all. Oh, Harry, I'm not going to sit by and watch you spoil your great adventure. Believe me, just think of that ferocious chef. I'm sure he's just dying to get his cleaver into you.
So humorous.
So I'll just say goodbye now and leave you to Mr. Spiro. I'm sure he'll take pains to give you a good show.
Oh, well, that's good of you, Simon. Thank you.
Oh, and have a good trip, Harry.
I hope you continue to dine here while I'm away. Thank you. Bye now.
Au revoir.
Au revoir, Mr. Flynn.
So I left them to it. The smiling Spiro and Harry Lafler about to realise his greatest ambition. On the way out, I stopped in the foyer to collect my coat. And as I was straightening my tie, I caught a glimpse in the mirror of Harry and Spiro, already at the kitchen door. Spiro was holding it open, invitingly wide, with one hand, whilst the other rested lightly on Harry's plump, meaty shoulder, squeezing it ever so gently, almost lovingly, rather in the way a housewife squeezes a prime fat turkey before she puts it into the oven. I've never seen or heard of Harry Lafler again. Shortly afterwards I left London in order to do some filming in New York. I've not been back since, and therefore I've never had the opportunity of dining again at Spiro's, or of renewing my acquaintance with its mysterious owner. In the intervening years, however, my interest in food and its preparation has increased, and I can now create and experiment with recipes of my own. But I must confess that even in my wildest flights of culinary fancy, I have never yet dared to attempt lamb parmesan.
In Speciality of the House by Stanley Ellin, you heard Geoffrey Bayldon as Mr. Spiro, Simon Flynn as himself, Ben Allen as Mr. Lafler, and The Waiters by Candia Udiokuma and Brian Cook. A high production for 2011.